I was recently contacted by some people down in very rural East Texas, and they told me they were going to be forced off their land and out of their homes to make way for a new lake. This lake was to provide water for the growing metropolis of Dallas-Fort Worth. The very first question that came to my mind when I heard about this was, can Dallas get this water some other way? Or do they have to push these people off the land and build this reservoir to get the water they need? But then I heard about something that blew me away and completely changed my first question that I thought I needed answered. And that was that they're not just going to take the land where the water sits, which would be around 100 square miles of rural Texas. But they were also planning on taking another 200 square miles or even more than that if for something called mitigation. This changed my first question to, what the heck is mitigation?
And it's sitting in, Red River County, and here's Titus County and Franklin County.
And where are we at right now?
We're actually right here.
Right here, okay.
We are standing in this little section right here. We're standing right here next to the highway.
So if this thing happens, this definitely will take your land.
Yes, I kind of drew that off to scale the best I could.
Sure.
Anyway, that's our place. Cuthand Creek is the northern boundary of our ranch.
Okay.
And so it would get, I don't know the percentage, but it would definitely get part of our land.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, the big unknown. And then the big unknown, mitigation.
Yeah.
What happens after that? And won't know until the process has already started, until the permits are already started. So they have to start the process to know that.
I see.
And there's a lot of people that are sitting out there, and I hate to say this, but there's a lot of people that probably think they're immune to this.
That are going to
end up being surprised that they're going to take their land for mitigation. They're not going to have any idea, because mitigation doesn't have to come from the border, from the boundaries of the lake. It could come from anywhere.
Were you on the board, the water board then? And
I was on the Region D Water Board 2 terms, and then I've been on the Sulphur River Basin Authority for 6 years now. Our land is right here.
Oh, you're right in the bottom
Yeah.
of it. I see. This is the 66,000 acres,
Yeah.
the water part,
Yeah.
right? And then they're taking, I don't know, how many more hundreds of thousands of acres or whatever.
Well, that's unknown. See, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the environmental people here in Texas got to get their head together and decide, well, this is how much we're going to have.
So who ends up with the land, like the mitigation land? Who gets that?
U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Texas Parks and Wildlife has got to manage that thing.
Okay. So they basically have control?
Nobody can hunt. No, they have control. Nobody can hunt on it without permission or fish on it or do anything else. And it comes off the tax rolls.
So it's not like public ground like out west where anybody can go on it at any
Well,
time.
you'd have to have permission, something other or
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Obviously they have other land like that in the state then, from these other lakes.
Mitigation stuff just started with Cooper Lake.
Oh, I see.
And I think it's 30-something thousand acres down below Grizzly.
Down here?
Down here.
Oak Creek.
Yeah, on White Oak
Okay.
Creek down there that they mitigate Cooper Lake. And that's the first lake that had in Texas that mitigation was used on.
I see. So this is actually another way to take land from private citizens and put it in the hands of government as well, because
It's much more powerful than even building a resource, in my view. Because so if you build a lake, you kill everything on it, you drive off the landowners, obviously, you get paid something, who knows. But these other people that aren't speaking out, that live in bottomland hardwood forest, they don't realize it, but they're just going to walk up someday and say, this is now ours.
right. Even if they're not, even if they're over here.
Yeah, get a letter in the mail.
They don't even
Right.
want to do it. And it may not even be our neighbors. It could be someone up on the Red River. It could be someone to our west or east. They'll just pick off the map and say, that's ours too. So it's one thing you get drowned by a lake. It's like, I don't know, in my medical line of work, if someone's sick and they've got cancer and they don't have their hair, you recognize they're sick and they've got a problem and everybody feels good, bad for them. They want to do something good. Well, if you're a rancher or a farmer or you've got trees for harvest and all of a sudden someone just grabs it, you're just as sick, but nobody even knows, and they kind of don't care about you.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, because you were just off over here.
Yeah, it's just gone.
And so the mitigation thing, where did that even get to? So I was talking about this yesterday. You know, it doesn't, that's just an excuse basically to get public land, because you're not, if you have forest land right here, right? And forest land right there, and you flood that and you buy this was already forest land. I keep saying this, but you didn't create any new forest land. You just purchased somebody else's land.
Well, you snatched it.
Or took it away from private to put it into the government owns it now.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing you did. You didn't actually create any new
Also,
habitat.
if they take land up here that's just farmland for mitigation, and they plant trees on it, they get a lot more credit for that than they do for taking this and it's already got wood on it.
Oh, they do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They'll take as many of these acres to do that as it does that.
You think of that number, too, like 66,000 acres is about 100 square miles, which is a shocking figure.
yeah.
But if you think if they mitigate 2 to 1, which is something we've heard about, that's another 200 square miles of productive agricultural land.
More than that.
That's minimum.
That's a minimum, yes, sir.
If they manage it good. If they just don't manage it very much, they got to take like a 5 to 1 or 6 to 1 out there. A lot more land.
Yeah, you can go up to 6 to 1.
So it kind of depends on how much land they want then, because
Quality of the land, 1 acre per 1 acre.
right.
But if you're going to go out on the prairie, you know, and take some land that's not as equal to the trees, you know, the hardwood bottom, then you might take 4 or 5 acres worth out there for every acre that goes into the water.
Right. See, I don't see that helps anybody, because if you got the wrong person doing that project, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're going to say, okay, I could take 1 acre of this hardwood right here, or I could take 7 acres of that.
That's right.
Well, they're going to take, if the whole idea is to take land out of private ownership and put it into the ownership of the government, they're going to take more acres.
I'm telling you, my analogy may not be a good one, but when you're buried underwater, everybody knows what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they just pick and choose, and I don't like that guy, maybe I'll go ahead and snatch that 500 acres, and well, that's a nice looking bottomland. We'll put that one in the kitty. Who's gonna? Those people don't have a fight.
No, and it doesn't. Nobody even knows it's coming. Yeah,
Water.
Yeah.
A lot of these people don't know what's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
So we try to get the word out. At every meeting we've been to for 2 decades, we ask them, what about the mitigation? What about the mitigation? They never give you a straight answer.
They don't really want to talk about
No, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want anybody to know really how bad it's going to be till it's a done deal.
Right.
Well, that's what they'll tell you. You can't begin to configure the mitigation until the contract's done and they start building it.
And so we don't know. We don't know.
Now that I thought I had a firm grasp on what I thought mitigation actually was, I went back to my initial question. Is there any other way for Dallas-Fort Worth area to get the water they need without displacing all these families, covering up hardwood bottoms and agricultural land, and moving all these people? Was there any other way to do it?
Toledo Bend down there, we've got, Texas has 1 million acre feet of water for sale, and Louisiana has 1 million acre feet. It's 2 million acre feet of water for sale down there.
Wow.
And Fort Worth has a 90-inch pipeline running to Richland Chamber Creek. That's down south Fort Worth to that lake down there. And from that lake to Toledo Bend is just a little bit further than a pipeline would be from here to Fort Worth.
Okay. So it's without building the lake, though.
Without building the lake.
So technically, you could save $7 billion. Well, probably $6 billion at least.
Well, they're going to spend a lot of money on a pipeline here. That $7 billion we're talking about doesn't even include a pipeline.
Oh, that doesn't even include the pipeline.
All parks or recreation areas or all that kind of stuff that they're going to have around that lake extra.
Okay. So you're going to save $7 billion to get it from Toledo Bend.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because that $7 billion is going to people that are really, really trying to get this thing through, apparently.
I have a home in Fort Worth. I just videoed my neighbors pouring water down the street that missed their lawn the other day when I was home. But here's efficiency for you. So a considerable amount of the water that's already pumped into Dallas or Fort Worth are lost through broken mains and watering that's useless. But neither city is reclaiming very much, if any, of their stormwater and wastewater to put right back into their system. But out in your part of the world, I read an article in a trustworthy magazine that Las Vegas takes 100% of its water from the Colorado River, reclaims all of it, and loses net zero and puts the same amount back in the Colorado River. You couldn't drink it, but the fish are okay with it and the plants. Now, if Las Vegas, Sin City, can do that, and in the desert, I think they could do a little bit more of that in Dallas and Fort Worth. They wouldn't need to develop new water sources.
Yeah. And they wouldn't even have to come close to net zero.
No.
Just a percentage of it.
Yeah.
And they'd be good for the next 100 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's another deal that nobody ever mentioned. No, that's that fire report. Y'all familiar with that?
What's that?
This is the Corps of Engineers did a report about 5 years ago on probably 8 or 10 of their lakes out there, Corps of Engineer lakes, where they draw that water down every year for flood control and then raise it back up and let it up and down.
Yeah.
They would better manage that right there. Just those lakes right there would be enough water for Region C.
Oh, so they already have.
Manage those lakes they had out there.
So they already have that. They just have to manage them a little differently.
Yeah,
they would
that's
have.
Corps of Engineer lakes. And of course, those city lakes, they don't manage nothing there. They just pump the water out and go on, I think.
In other words, there's plenty of options for them to get water.
Yeah.
But this comes down to a lot more of the dollar amount, the money.
What do you do?
None of those other options make those people that money that this will make.
Yes.
When you're coming out, Rockwall is a huge, I don't know the size of it, but it's a big lake. And it's a recreational lake. And from what I understand, they could pull out of that. But from what I understand, they won't pull water out because it's a recreational lake for the people out of Dallas. They don't want that water level to drop because now a lot of building is taking place around it, resorts and things like that. And they can't afford that to happen. It's a big lake. And that's what we're talking about. People, if you're not here and see and talk to people, I mean, you're not going to have any idea. I mean, people, and I know that they probably will need water. I'm not saying that Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Metroplex and North Texas doesn't need water, but this is not the way to get the water. There are less damaging ways to get water than to build a 66,000 acre reservoir and flood land and take 200,000 acres of land away from people.
Now that we understand what mitigation is and that Dallas and Fort Worth have more options than just this lake, and they don't technically need this land for that purpose, the next thing that comes to my mind is who's profiting from this? There's a lot of money involved. How much money and where is it going? And how much influence do those people have on this project?
Okay, so the question I had, maybe you know this and maybe not, but I heard yesterday when they are taking this ground, some of this will be, on the border of the lake somewhere. And they're going to take a portion all the way around the lake.
They will.
And then they're going to immediately improve that and subdivide it and sell it.
There's things that I need to find out that I don't know, and that's a great question.
When I look at these projects, I go, okay, $7 billion project. The engineer and the construction companies stand to make a ton of money. So
Reason Nichols supposed to get 33% right off the top of a $7 billion lake.
Okay. So
That tells you right there.
33%. Holy cow. That's
Yeah,
what is that?
much.
So you're basically not up against these other guys. You're up against you're up against $2 billion of somebody's profit. Or maybe not profit, somebody's revenue.
Of course, these big construction companies, the dirt people, they gonna get their slice of it.
Because there was a guy yesterday that told me that he was in a meeting and they said they're going to improve his land and then resell it right away. So that doesn't even make any sense to me as far as mitigation. How you're not mitigating anything.
Well, that's not
So that wouldn't include
be
the
mitigation land. No, that's flood. From what I understand, I'm just telling you what I understand. But that's flood control buffer. So from what I understood, they determine the 100-year, 500-year flood control, how far they need to buffer around from that lake. So, of course, the steeper the slope, the shallower the slope, the further it's going to be from the lake. Steeper the slope, the closer it's going to be. But they'll have a buffer for flood control that no one is supposed to be able to build on. That's what I was told early on this. But they will take a buffer all the way around the lake. Now, they just built Bodark Lake in around Bonham, and they put up lots. Same thing. They took the land, they built the lake, and they put up lots for sale, and they were selling like hotcakes out from Dallas. From Dallas wanting to come out and buy the lakefront property and buy the lots.
Yeah, it's a lot different from just rural land to lakefront property.
And so that's the question I have. How does, from what I understand, they'll take a buffer. They will take a buffer all the way around the lake. It won't be mitigation land. It'll be like flood control,
and then somehow
convert that into lots that they'll buy the acre for a certain price and then sell it by the lot for
way more.
Yeah. And I don't know who they
is.
That's what I'm trying to find. I need to find out more information about all that. But yes, that's what would happen. They would sell lots around it.
A board I sat on in Fort Worth area, there was an attorney on that board, and this was kind of bubbling up. And I said, your firm does a lot of eminent domain work, and they just built a big new state road basically through Fort Worth going south down to Cleveland. And he said, we handle all the eminent domain. I said, that's interesting. I'd like to talk to you about that. I didn't tell him I would be on the other side.
Right.
So he said, well, here's a phone number. Go ahead and call this number. And it was one of the partners in the firm. It was a nice younger lady attorney. And I came clean. I said, look, I'm here because I'm part of this. And she didn't exactly clam up. She said, well, we really can't help you because we're on the other side of that. I said, but I will tell you one thing, and it's public knowledge. You have to dig to find it. But there's been money, federal dollars, allotted to build this lake for decades. And the person who engineers, builds dam, puts in the work, gets the money. So whether or not the water's actually needed based on the other resources available, there's already taxpayer dollars at the federal level is in a box ready to hand over to whoever puts that dam up. And we all know that, but it never gets talked about. State of Texas is still going to have to put up a lot of money to get this, $10, $20 billion project done. But all they got to do is start pushing dirt, and they get paid. And so that's a big driver. We know that. It's like, that's painful.
That is painful. When you got that kind of money, it happens all the time in government. I mean, there's worse. Money gets allotted for something and set in an account, but it can't be used for anything but that. So it gets stuck there.
That's what
Yeah. And so they're like, well, to get that money, we got to do this project. And so then they're willing to steamroll over a whole bunch of environmental impact stuff and everything just to get that money out of there, which means it's all about money and not about the environment or the people that live here.
Or maybe even the water.
Yeah. Or maybe not even the water. Yeah, exactly. It's very frustrating, though. It got to be some way to change that where you pull that money back out and reassign it. Somebody's got to be able to do that. I don't know who that would be. That would take away the incentive. Everything that I see is about incentive. If you incentivize a certain industry for business through taxes or whatever, people will always go to that industry. Businessmen will always go to that industry. If you're incentivizing the wrong thing and it just sits there as an incentive, you're going to end up with the wrong thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
With a project like this where you're taking away so much land from so many people, there's a bigger impact than you're going to see on the surface. And I wanted to know what studies have been done. What is the impact that's going to be on this community, on these people individually, in the area as a whole?
There was a feasibility study that had to take place, and Gary Van Diva, our state representative, had put it in the last legislative session that a feasibility study needed to be performed. So they did a feasibility study, just came out about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it looked at 4 different areas to go look, but the economic impact, the land acquisition, but had 4 different areas. Is it feasible? Is Marvin Nichols feasible according to these things? And it came back and said, yes, Marvin Nichols, according to this, it's feasible. This, it's feasible. And then when you look at the definition, because I have the study in there, but the definition of feasibility that they had, and I talked to the lady from the Texas Water Development Board that helped do the study, and she said that's the definition they had to use because it's the only definition they have for those kind of things. But the definition basically says if the person that's going to put or the company that's going to put in it, if they can acquire funding for it, and if they meet all the permit timelines and all the timelines that need to be performed, as long as they have funding and they meet timelines, then it's feasible.
Oh, so that's the only 2 qualifications.
Pretty much. And I've got the, we can read it, it's pretty wordy, but that's what it says. As long as they can acquire funding, as long as they had a vote to be able to acquire the funding they need for the project, and they meet the permit timelines and meet the timeline of when the reservoir needs to be, projection date of when it needs to be completed, then it's feasible. And that has nothing to do with the things that they were looking at. It has nothing to do with the economic...
take into consideration what the economic
like the
impact we'll have here.
The environmental impact.
The environmental impact.
It has
any of that stuff.
Nothing to do with it.
Yes.
And on the outside looking in, if you're sitting here going, I have a feasibility study saying it's feasible.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
it would be feasible. Exactly.
It'd be feasible to build it on the moon. You could pump water from Lake Erie here.
If you can get the finances.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it has nothing to do with what we thought would be feasible.
Right.
And right, I guess right and wrong more than anything. But so they have the feasibility study, and there's a public comment time. We're going to send public comments in. I'm not sure what it will be.
And when is that?
October the 25th is the deadline.
Holy cow.
October 25th.
October the 25th.
Yeah, that's the deadline for the public comments.
Okay.
So if we're going to do public comments, we have to get those in. And so then, because it was a draft, this is a draft. The feasibility study was a draft, and it's going to go to the legislature, and which will start in January. But that will go to them as a finalized product. So we have to get these public comments in. Could you do it? Yes, you could. Is it the right thing to do? No, it's not the right thing to do.
No,
and everybody knows that.
And the economic impact that you're going to have on this region here.
Yeah.
If that wasn't even considered, obviously.
Yeah.
That's going to be massive. Not only economic, but families and families and schools and neighborhoods and communities. And so, that's agriculture.
Yeah, I was going to say, we haven't even really talked about the agriculture side of it. You have crop production that takes place. You have cow-calf operations, yearling operations, timber operation. Timber industry is a big deal in Northeast Texas, and that would be devastated. The timber industry would be devastated.
Right down about the middle of this thing.
The middle of so there's a fault line running
underneath that thing.
Right underneath the middle of this whole thing here.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
This was Talco oil field right up here with this white line in it. That's been Talco field all my life. It started, I think it hit it in 1936.
Okay.
And it's still got a pretty good sized field down here. It's called the Trix Lewis field that will go underwater. It's pumping out 3 oil sands down there. And there's no mention in the study that they did about how much money it's going to take about that shut down oil field.
Right. You mean how much that's going to take out of the economy to shut that down, is what you're saying?
Or take for them to build the lake.
Right.
I don't even know if that's included in that $7 billion.
Okay. Probably
never
not.
mentioned it, so don't know.
Right. Just dealing with the oil field. I don't understand this at all. So I live in Montana. If we run sheep on public land, you get sued because this is not a joke. You get sued because the sheep are destroying the experience of somebody that's on the public. You can't even find the sheep that are on the public land.
I can't see them.
You got to basically stand around. If you ever tried to find a sheep in sagebrush, they are like, and they have to stay in a flock. They get killed by the 1,000 from the wolves and the coyotes all the time, even though they have the protecting dogs and everything. So they lost that case, but this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with all the time in Montana. We're getting sued over that stuff. And yet we're taking out hardwoods for solar
Right.
and farm ground, putting it on top of this, taking out oil fields and taking people's land, and we don't have 700 lawsuits against this thing. I don't even understand that.
It's private land. It's not public land. Like you're talking about in Montana, you know, there's some rules about your public land up there, but here this is all private land.
Right, so nobody cares about private land, apparently. In Montana, where they build a dam, is where it narrows down to a canyon.
Yes,
So they can build a wall right across the canyon wall and back it up. Yeah.
It goes right,
Right there.
right there, and it runs all that water backs
that
up.
water.
How many miles?
Just
this dam-
geometers.
Yeah.
Go like that and go 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
You got this dam. It takes quarter the size of the lake. It's most of the lake. It's
Yeah.
kind of like you took a puddle and built a mud wall around it when you were a little kid.
Exactly.
And-
And you had to build all three sides to get it to stay in there.
Yep. Something that I've never been to Cooper Lake, which is to the west of us, but some of these folks have. And when they draw it down, they built a lake, and they put all the little pavilions and boat docks and stuff, mowed the lawn. When they draw the lake down, it's hundreds of yards from the boat launch to where the water is way out there, and a mud flat with stumps between there. That's exactly what my ranch is going to look like, a mud flat with stumps and my old fences and foundations.
Right.
And you're going to see it every year.
Yeah.
Every time they draw it down. It's supposed to have to do all these other studies on cultural impact, economic impact.
Yeah.
Once it's approved and they get their permits, then they're supposed to do the rest. But I can't see anything in hundreds of pages where they'd have to stop the project or redo it if they come up with a large Indian burial site that's important to the local Cahokia or whoever else might have been here, or they learn that the Cheatwood family would, lose $1 million in future value and profit. It doesn't seem like any of that would ever stop it once they've got the money part of it.
Yeah, once they got that figured out, then they're not going to...
There's probably the best estimate we can come up with is there's 1,000 archaeological sites in that under that lake right there.
Wow.
1,000. They don't even mention it in that study they did. No mention of it. Period.
Huh. Wow.
Our previous county judge, he told us up there one day that,
Lee Williamson.
that we was going to get free water.
Yeah.
If you let this lake go in?
If you let this lake go in, you'll get free water.
Well, it'd be pretty hard to do because you won't be here.
Yeah.
This has been hanging over these gentlemen's families' heads for 30 years now.
Yeah.
And it chokes off their families, and it chokes off investment. It's like a boa constrictor,
Oh, absolutely.
and it never stops. It's day and night. I've got a few miles of fence I'd like to replace. I've got the capital to do it. But I don't know, 20, 25 years from now, not going to help my resale, even though it'd be way better fence than a 7-year-old fence I got. So I'm probably not going to make that investment. Well, these folks have been investing in this land for generations. So that boa constrictor, as it tightens, it drives off the young people, makes people not invest in the land. It makes people look the other way on improvements that they should be doing. And I think that's a tragedy that's happening right now without the lake being built.
Yeah, if you start the process far enough back, then you're like, by then, nobody will have bought in. You're going to just have an old community that's pretty easy to shove aside.
Despite this, when I looked around this community and actually went to the fundraiser that they held at this very fire hall the last night I was there, that's not what I saw. I saw young people coming back to this community. I saw young people wanting to raise their families here. I saw mothers playing with their children. I saw a younger and older generation. I saw every age of generation at this gathering in the type of community that I believe almost every American really wants to be a part of.
Squirrel stew.
And this is deer chili.
That's deer chili?
All right, that is fried cornbread.
Fried?
Yeah, this is
I gotta try
just
that.
regular baked.
Okay.
How was that Christmas? Well, that's what I noticed was it won't come by and they still go to the young cow bill. What it's taking for the young ones, we did it.
All right, Janice Gentry with butter sugar cookies from the Smith family cookbook. 110, I got a wheel over here at $100, now 110, anybody? I have. Sold Will's Way. John Ross for $100. Thank you, John.
And I thought, this is the true impact of what this lake is going to do, is it's going to break this apart.
It was great. Yeah, you're quite a cook, Eddie. My goodness. Yeah.
Quick example, when we're having our first child, I'm good at busting water lines sometimes when it gets wet and I run over water lines. Well, I busted a water line the day before my wife went to labor with our first child. Sitting out here with a busted water line, water's off, I can't get it fixed that day. She goes in labor, we go to the hospital, I come home, guess what? It's fixed.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Somebody came by.
They knew. My neighbor.
Knew it happened.
I know who it was.
Yeah.
But he came over here, he dug it up, he fixed it for me, got it all fixed. We come back from the hospital after having the first child, it's fixed. That's what they do. I mean, that's what neighbors around here do. Yep. Our church is kind of the center of the community. We have an unbelievable church and just a huge amount of people that just care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's you don't get that everywhere.
Right.
And so what Marvin Nichols would do, I'm afraid, is just rip that apart.
Yeah.
And this is something that you can't make. You can't generate that anywhere else. It happens. It just happens naturally, and it happens with good people.
Yeah.
And
it's hard
Marvin Nichols would rip that community apart and separate neighbors from neighbors. But the bad thing is just take their land and make them leave.
Right.
And this is family. I mean, basically, this family. I have family, but I have family. I mean, we're all family. We take care of each other. So that's just, I want to say that because it's important.
It is important.
And that's something you can't explain enough. I mean, if you don't have that, you may not understand it. But man,
yeah. But I think the people that don't have it really want that.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad.
So
thing.
it's like you want it, and yet just because it's kind of out of your sight and out of your mind over here, doesn't mean you should be able to destroy it.
Exactly.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we've gone through the list of questions, and the last one I had was, how can we help stop this? I believe it's a tragedy to allow this to move forward when there's other options besides taking all this land away from these people and displacing them and destroying this community and all this amazing land, taking this land out of production, all the farmland and ag land. So what can we do to really impact or possibly get this stopped? Once something this size and with this much money gets going, it's very difficult to actually stop it. But I wanted to know if there was anything that we could do.
So how do we get this stopped? I mean, who do these people contact? You know, I mean, because who's going to make the final decision? I mean,
Well, they're tied in with the state real tight down there
in Dallas,
in Austin.
These different lakes have been in the water planning of a region that's not ours for a long time. So how do we defend against that? Really, the way I see it is the people that have laid their fingers into this are not going to be our people. It's going to be people that live in the Dallas and Fort Worth region. And honestly, I think it comes down to the younger people. The older people that have already bought the land, that want to develop it and put the houses on it, they're not going to help us. They're not going to get in the way. They may smile at us. But younger people that actually have gotten out of their own way and they care a little bit about the environment, even if they're not going to come up here, they may be the key. I don't think the legislator is going to help us. I really don't.
so it's going to be pressure on the actual Region C Water Board and those people in charge. What you're saying?
Their own people.
By their own people, because they're the ones that are trying to make the decision over here.
Correct.
To see the latest on this issue, get involved, or to become more aware of other things that are affecting rural America, as well as seeing behind-the-scenes information and videos from me, go to lifeinthewest.com. That's lifeinthewest.com.